All right, so welcome to the pre-med journey presentation. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Christina and I work at the Career Center. And today we will talk about the pre-med journey, timeline, preparation for the med school application process, and also share resources, services available at the Career Center and campus-wide that may help you with this pretty complex process. So before the med school journey begins, you kind of have to start thinking a little bit about what are your reasons and purpose for applying for medical school. Try to figure out who you are, evaluate and assess your professional and personal goals, and gather information, conduct some serious research to make sure that this is the right decision for you. I don't need to tell you that applying to medical school, it's a full-time job and it requires years of preparation. So we really want you to be sure that this is the right field for you before you invest all that time and energy just to discover that this might not be the right choice. As you probably know, that you do it is required to have a strong overall profile. The medical school application is a very competitive process, so we hope that you will focus on your studies and have a solid GPA, a strong MCAT score, clinical experience, volunteering, research experience, leadership, community service. Clinical experience normally is hospital experience, anything that can give you patient care experience. And then you will require to have strong letters of recommendation. Every school is a little bit different about who they want to see letters from and how many they accept. So we're going to talk about how you're going to find out that information. And every medical school requires a personal statement, which is, why do you want to become a doctor? For medical school admissions information and statistics, you may want to visit your preferred medical school website. I just found the UCI's admissions information. It's a very detailed page. This is something that you would look for at all the schools that you might be interested in, but there is also a centralized resource that we're going to talk about a little later that can help you with creating your school list and comparing, contrasting schools as you go along. Med school facts. You don't need to be a science major. I'm sure this doesn't come as a surprise. Many students come from humanities, some even come from engineering. I've seen students who majored in political science, history, even dance or French or other languages. As long as you take your pre-med science courses that are required for medical school, you can apply for medical school without being a life science major. However, the rigor of the major that you choose will be taken into consideration. Because of course, as a history major, you probably won't have as solid of a science background as somebody who, let's say, comes from a neurosci background. But we still advise students to follow your passion because that's how you probably will be most successful in your academic career. And if you want to pursue the pre-med track, just take the pre-med prerequisites, which, by the way, you will be able to discuss with, if you're a life science major, you can get course planning support from your academic advisors. If you decide to major in something else than life sciences, we have a pre-med advisor for you. MD school facts. Many medical schools operate on a rolling admissions, which means that they are admitting students as they find top candidates, which means that the earlier you apply, the better are your chances. That's why we always tell students to make sure that you have everything ready when the applications open and submit your applications as soon as you can. Plan B. Never hurts to have a plan B. Sometimes things either don't work out or you change your mind or something comes up. So please make sure that you consider what are some of the things that you would do either if you change your mind or if you don't get accepted on the first try. These are some options. So depending on what was the main reason for you not getting in on the first try, you can choose between these options. If you think that your GPA is not competitive enough, then you may want to consider completing a master's program or a post-bac program. If you think that you're lacking in experience, you may start thinking about gaining some more healthcare or research experience. Or if you decide that you want to try to do something else, then you can look into different career paths or international medical schools or DA programs. But another very very often chosen path is the physician assistant one. So we're going to talk about those things as well. So if you want to go to medical school, but you feel that your GPA or MCAT scores are low, then you have, with MCAT score, it's easier, the fix is easier. You just need to prepare again and you need to retake it. It's a one-time thing. So if you take it the first time and you don't feel that the score reflects your knowledge, we recommend to take a couple of more months to prepare again and retake it if possible. If you have a GPA problem, that is a little bit harder to fix. So post-bac programs were designed to help you with that, and specialty master's programs too. But you can also look into international medical schools because their requirements are just a little bit lower than the US-based medical schools, but their education rigor is pretty much the same. So what are post-bac programs? I've mentioned that a couple of times now. So the phrase post-bac programs refers to programs geared to the college graduate. So you have to have a BS or a BA completed before you can apply to a post-bac program, who wants to apply to medical, dental, or veterinary school, and the GPA is a little bit less than desirable. They are offered by undergraduate institutions and graduate schools as well, and sometimes medical schools as well. The link on the bottom of the page can take you to more information from our Pre-Health at UCLA website to learn more about gap year options or post-bac programs. Post-bac programs can come in two shapes and forms. You have the formal and informal ones. The informal ones normally don't require an application process, and you can take the classes at your pace. An informal program is something that you can join at any time, and we have one through the UCLA extension. You can look it up. At the end of the presentation, I will put the link in your chat box so you can take a look. On the other hand, the formal post-bac programs, they are, as I mentioned earlier, a year long, and you do have an application process, and some of them are pretty competitive in their own right. And they are very similar to the med school application process. They will ask for letters of recommendation, personal statement, and the personal statement is pretty much the same, why you want to become a doctor, because that's what they do. They prepare you for medical school, so they want to understand your motivation. And you will have an application process, sometimes even an interview, and there are a wide variety of post-bac programs, and there is a link right there that you can take a look at and see all the different post-bac programs that are offered. So if you decide that you're no longer interested in applying to medical school, but you not necessarily know what you would want to do, we have a lot of resources for you to figure out what the next step might be. You can still explore health careers if you decide to choose your career option within the healthcare field, but you can explore more broadly, and the Occupational Outlook Handbook or the ONET Online will help you with that. If you decide to explore within the health careers, that probably Explore Health Careers is the best option for you. You can learn a great deal about a wide variety of fields within this industry, and I strongly recommend that site. It's linked to the Pre-Health at UCLA website as well. You may want to think about the theoretical knowledge that you attained from your major and all the skills and qualification either you had before you even entered UCLA or you acquired through your work or volunteer experiences, because they do apply to a lot of different careers, not just medicine or healthcare in particular. If you decide to stick with the pre-med journey, then preparation begins. To seek academic advice, as I mentioned before, if you are a life science major, you can talk to your academic advisor about the pre-med coursework. If you are not a life science major, then Ina Gergel is the academic advisor. She is in the physiological sciences department, and she's the pre-med pre-health advisor for non-life science majors. I suggest to start your academic planning as early as you can, because there are quite a few prerequisite courses for medical school, and especially if you're not a life science major and you need to work these coursework into your your academic schedule, you definitely want to get started on it as soon as possible. So the pre-med experience. So medical schools have what they call a holistic admission process, which means that they will look at your GPA and MCAT score. Those are the numbers, so they are pretty solid. But then they look at all the experiences that you have acquired in a holistic way. They really want to see clinical experience to make sure that you have some patient care, that you have gotten a clear idea of what medicine looks like. You know what caring for patients mean on a daily basis. They really would like to see research experience, especially from UCLA students, since we are a research institution. But research does not have to be medical research. It can be any type of research you can get on campus, because they just want to see if you have a commitment to learning, have gained an understanding of what research is all about and the importance of research in medical advances. Leadership experience, it can come on or off campus, from on or off campus. So most students get their leadership experience through the student organizations they are involved in, but some are heavily involved in community or religious organizations, and that's perfectly fine too. Community and volunteer experience is an area where you can actually follow other passions than medicine, which means that some students are very passionate about education or animal rights or the climate. So they do their community service or volunteer experiences in other than healthcare related settings. And that's always welcomed too, because medical schools do like to see a well-rounded applicant. Pre-med journey, MCAT. So the MCAT is a very, very important number on your application. Take it when you are most prepared. So depending on when you end up applying to medical school, and everybody is on a very different journey. As you will see, it was a little bit hard for us to put together a timeline, because everybody has a little bit of a different idea of when they want to apply for medical school. But once you decide the application date, you want to work back in time to create roadmap for your MCAT preparation. So every year, the medical school applications open in May. You have a month to fill it out, and you apply in June. So regarding of when you want to take the MCAT, we always tell the students to try to use the summer before your application year to prepare for it and take it early fall. So let's say you want to apply in 2022, then you would use the summer of 21 to prepare for the MCAT, take it the first time in September 21, and apply in 22. The reason we say that is because, as I mentioned before, if your number is not satisfactory to you, you still have months to prepare again and potentially take it again, maybe late winter, early spring. The latest you should be looking at is probably April, because MCAT takes about 4 to 5 weeks to get scored, and you definitely want the new score, if you're waiting for an improved score, to have it before you actually submit your application. You have to have an MCAT score in your application when you submit. You can retake it later and they will look at your new score again. But unless you have an MCAT score, some schools may not start processing your applications. With COVID-19, this rule was laxed a bit because a lot of students have had difficulties taking the MCAT because, as you probably all know, in March everything came to an abrupt halt, including MCAT testing. And for a few months, there were just no MCAT testing available. So some schools made some adjustments because of that, but generally speaking, medical schools do like to see an MCAT score before they start processing your information. MCAT is not offered at all times, and it's offered only at testing centers. So the MCAT dates come out twice a year in normal times. Again, because of COVID, that was adjusted this year as well. I don't know when we're going to be able to go back to normal, but just the AMC website, and we are usually alerting students when the MCAT dates are come out. If you need assistance with test preparation, we have a partnership with Princeton Review. Karen is our Princeton Review contact. You can reach out to her, and Princeton Review offers discounts to UCLA students. Pre-med letters of recommendation. So every school is a little bit different about how many letters they require, how many letters they accept, and the origins of those letters. So, but you do need to start thinking early about potential letter writers. Again, being online with your education makes it a little bit more, even more difficult to connect with professors. So make sure that you start early and make sure that you select your letter writers wisely. Develop and nurture those relationships with professors, clinical and research supervisors, and the clinical and research supervisors are great letter writers, usually great resources for that, but you have to have a good relationship with them in order for them to write you a strong letter. Strong, it's important because a weak letter can hurt your chances. If a professor if a professor can only write about the fact that you were a great student in their class, but not much else, that might be a weak letter. So that's why it's very important to have a good relationship with your letter writers and potentially provide additional materials that they may not know about you when you request the letters. I noticed that there are a couple of things in the chat. No Q&A. So how would you find research with COVID? I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. Does Princeton Review give discounts for former UCLA students? I am with graduated 2020, you may be able to get some discounts, yes. So just contact Karen, and I'm going to put her contact information in the chat soon, and see what she can do for you. Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, application. You have to have a school list. So you do need to start researching schools, and the MCAS and the amc.org website is a great resource for that. And I'm going to show you the MSTAR in a minute. But everything that you want to know about the application or requirement is through the MCAS website. Through the amc.org website, sorry. The MCAS application is through that as well. So as you can see, you have primary and secondary application. What that means. So the primary application is actually a centralized application that I mentioned opens in May. You have an entire month to fill it out because it's quite a long application. You have to enter all the courses, all the activities, all the information, personal information that they request. So it's going to take some time to fill out the application itself. With the primary application, the personal statement needs to go out, which is a 5,000 characters essay about why you want to become a doctor. With the personal statement, you can get some assistance on campus. We review personal statements, college academic mentors do, and the undergraduate writing center can help you with that too. And I'm going to give you all the information a little later. Secondary application. So some schools or most schools have automatic secondaries, which means that once you submit your primary application, you can expect that you, depending on how many schools you're applying to, that some secondaries are start pouring in. Some schools do not send secondary applications automatically. They are selective at that level, which you're going to be grateful for, because if you see secondary applications pouring in, they're going to take a while to be sent back, and those are kind of time sensitive. You want to return secondary applications as soon as possible, and they usually have supplementary essays on similar but slightly different topics from school to school, and we do help with that too if your time permits. With the secondary applications, you have to send out your letters of recommendations as well. So the letters of recommendation need to be either uploaded to the MCAS application, or if you request the letters earlier and you don't have an MCAS application open yet, you can use document management services like Interfolio to store your letters and submit them whenever your application is ready. The Interfolio is in contact with MCAS, so usually doesn't, it's not very it's not a very complicated process. And because the letters of recommendation needs to be confidential, you definitely need to store them somewhere. So you may want to look into some options. Interviews. Every medical school interviews top candidates. So if the primary application was submitted early, which means, let's say within the month of June, then usually the secondary applications can start coming in early as well, like end of July, beginning of August. And then sometimes the interviews can start coming in as early as end of August, beginning of September, but they can come in even as late as February, beginning of March. It's less likely, but I knew of students who interviewed in end of February, beginning of March. So the medical school admissions requirements, MSAR, is the online database that enables you to browse, search, sort, and compare information about US and Canadian medical schools and BS and MD programs and more. This used to be they used to have a printed version. The 2018 edition picture is right there, but now it's only online and you can purchase access to it. I believe it's $28, and you can start looking through the information that will help you make your school selections. It will give you all sorts of information about statistics, how many students apply to that specific medical school, what is the average GPA and MCAT score that the incoming class has, where other applicants are coming from, demographic information. So a lot of useful data to help you make the selection of your medical schools. Timeline. So originally it said junior year, and I had to change it because I realized that sometimes students know from the first or second year that they want to do pre-med, and that the earlier you can make that decision, the more time you have to accomplish great things. So that's why I put in first, second, and third year there, because technically those things can be done at any point when you make that commitment that you're going to be pre-med. So joining pre-med student organizations is a fantastic opportunity for multiple reasons. First of all, you are going to be surrounded by like-minded, ambitious people who will keep you in track, informed, inspired, motivated to stick with the program. Second, as I mentioned earlier, most students get their sometimes even clinical, but most often the community and volunteer opportunities through their student organizations. And many student organizations have mentorship programs. They invite great speakers. They provide information pertaining to the MCAT. So there are a lot of benefits to apply to pre-med organizations. Some are more competitive than others, but there are plenty of student organizations to choose from, and you may want to start auditing some of them to make sure that you choose the one that you will feel most welcomed in. Participating in extracurricular activities, as I mentioned, it does not have to be healthcare related. If you have some other interests or passions, just make sure that you do something that gives back to the community, that builds that community feel, and something that you can also use as a form of relaxation and re-energizing, because it's going to be quite a taxing process. Gaining clinical and research experience is key to being a competitive candidate for medical school, and establishing relationship with professors, clinical and research supervisors from early on, it's very important for the letters of recommendation. Maintaining a competitive GPA is #1 goal. I should have put it as the first bullet because that should be your #1 goal. A lot of students take a while until they get used to the quarter system in their freshman year, but they are also very eager to get involved on campus, to get to know students, to get to know the campus. Please don't feel tempted to stretch yourself too thin, because the GPA is difficult to improve. It takes a long time and you don't want to do it. So make sure that your GPA stays as strong as possible, and only get involved when you figured out how much time you actually need for studies, for classes, for labs and things like that, so that your studies don't suffer. You can start preparing for the MCAT probably by the end of your sophomore year, because that's when you probably have taken some or most or many of the courses that cover the topics that are on the MCAT. So we always recommend students to only attempt the MCAT when you have most of your prerequisites done, because then at least in a course setting, you have seen the topics that you will encounter on that test. So to continue in the winter quarter, you can continue all of the things that I just mentioned. And again, start thinking about LOR accounts. start thinking about creating a document binder to prepare for the application. In the past, I had invited the formal admission dean of the David Geffen School of Medicine to one of my programs, and he said something very interesting that I keep saying to students ever since. He recommended students to write a diary about all the pre-med experiences, because chances are you're going to be doing them for a while by the time the application year or the application it rolls around, you may not have as clear of a memory of all the things that you have learned, gained by some of these experiences. Having a diary helps you relive those moments, and you will be it will be very helpful to you to when you need to write about your activities in the application process, and it's probably going to help you a great deal with crafting your personal statement as well. You can also start thinking about your personal statement, because the question is very simple: why do you want to be a doctor? But there are 1,000 different ways you can answer that question. Junior year. So if you don't want to take a gap year, then you would apply to medical school in the summer of your junior year. And in that case, you will probably need to update your resume, finalize your personal statement, request unofficial and official transcripts, take the MCAT, hopefully you have it by then, and create the profile on MCAS in May. That's when it first opens. Application submissions open in June. If you're taking a gap year, then you can postpone this accordingly. If you decide to take one gap year, you would do this in the spring quarter of your senior year. So if you don't take a gap year, the summer before your senior year, you would submit your application, hopefully in June or July, complete secondaries, schedule pre-med mock interviews. We do offer those. We prepare you for the medical school interviews. And then hopefully you will be invited to med school interviews, and you can start scheduling them as well. For now, they are all online, so you would not need to travel. But if we go back to normal, you will be traveling to medical schools that offered you an interview. So, Career Center and campus-wide resources and services. So the Career Center has a lot of great resources for you. They are fairly new. They've been around, these three that you see on the screen, probably a year now. The Pre-Health at UCLA website, it's still work in progress, but you will find a lot of helpful information there already. The Pre-Health at UCLA Facebook page is something that we are extremely happy and pleased with, because it hosts all the recorded pre-med pre-health webinars that we offer through the spring quarter. We used to post, we have a great healthcare alumni spotlight series. We spotlight pre-health, pre-med student organizations. We share work and volunteer opportunities from Handshake. So the Facebook page, it's a great way to keep on top of all the things pre-health that happens at the Career Center and campus-wide. We do share campus-wide opportunities as well. The Pre-Health newsletter is, again, something fairly new. I think we have started them in last academic year, and you can subscribe to them by making a selection in your industry interest on your Handshake account for healthcare. And once you select that as your industry interest, you will receive, it's going to be bi-weekly newsletter during fall, winter, and spring quarter. And it will remind you of upcoming events, share opportunities either on campus or off campus that we are alerted to either by colleagues from UCLA or from other UCs or higher education institutions. So it may be about research programs and things like that. Campus-wide, so you may know that we have an undergraduate research center which can help you finding research on campus. And we have the college academic mentors. When we were on campus, they had their office hours out of Murphy, but now you can schedule Zoom meetings with them, just like you can schedule counseling appointments with us. And they are graduate students from across different disciplines at UCLA. Last year, they did have a medical student from David Geffen. I don't know who the new academic mentors are, but you can see the list at that link. The pre-med student organizations, as I mentioned, they are a wealth of information and a great support system. So if you decide to look for student organizations, that's the link that will help you find them. So we do offer MCAT and GRE test prep support. We have strategy sessions and we have free online practice tests every quarter. It's the same practice test each quarter, both for MCAT and GRE. Some students like to take the same test multiple times because they can figure out how much they improved from one quarter to another. And just by taking practice tests, I think that's a great preparation in any case. For upcoming dates, you can go to the Handshake events. The fall quarter dates are already in. We're gonna offer one GRE and one MCAT strategy session and one free online practice test for both. So pre-health counseling. The Career Center offers pre-health counseling. You can make appointments through your Handshake account. We post appointments mostly on Fridays. I understand that sometimes it's a little bit hard to find open appointments, but bear with us because we are only 11 of us and thousands of you, but we are trying very hard to put as many appointments as we can in the system. Those are 30-minute appointments to address any questions, concerns you may have, or if you just want to talk over your plan or your preparations or ask any questions about where to look for clinical experience, we will try to help you with wherever we can. As I mentioned, we do review personal statements as well. We would like to see a completed draft if possible, because that's how we can give you the best feedback. But as I mentioned, with the writing process, you can use the undergraduate writing center if you need help with that. The drop-in counseling is happening every week on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And those are shorter sessions, only 15 minutes. So we kind of limit the topics we are able to tackle in that time frame to resume cover letter reviews and job and internship search. So some of the programming, oh, here are the dates. There we go. So the test prep, so the GRE will happen on October 19th, the practice test on the 23rd, the MCAT strategy sessions November 2nd, and the practice test November 6th. You can already register for these on the Handshake account. Every fall, we offer something called Finding Research in the Sciences. And we try to bring together other entities on campus that offer research experience and also student organizations that offer research experience. So you can register for that event for October 22nd. Hands-on healthcare, virtual opportunities. Hopefully it's gonna work out. I've never done it online before. So I'm gonna try to bring together in programs, organizations, companies that offer hands-on healthcare experience that to help you find volunteer and community service if possible in a healthcare field. Mad Mentor Mondays. This is something new. We started working with a group of first and second year medical school students from the David Geffen School of Medicine in I want to say in February. So all the webinars that they delivered on a wide variety of topics pertaining to medical school applications were recorded, and you can access them on the Pre-Health at UCLA Facebook page. They tackled topics like the MCAT application, secondary applications, how to ask for letters of recommendation, how to prepare for the MCAT on your own, medical school interviewing. They have a lot of things, a lot of topics that they talked to students about. So you can review those. You can view those recordings on the Pre-Health at UCLA Facebook page. And we will have new topics coming up. Only one is scheduled so far, but this is going to be things we wish we knew. The first year med school students will share their first year medical school experience. But we are in talks about more topics. So hopefully in Handshake, there will be more webinars entered for November. JUMPSTART series. So these are fast-paced career exploration programs with great guest speakers from academic programs and professionals practicing different pre-med, pre-health, healthcare in different healthcare fields. And these programs are great opportunities for you to learn about specific careers and network with successful professionals representing their fields. We have two topics coming up this fall quarter. One is the physical and occupational therapy, and the second one is optometry. For the physical and occupational therapy, we're going to have Samuel Merritt University and Loma Linda. And for optometry, I don't know yet. I haven't started planning them. We have also two professionals, one physical and one occupational therapist. So if you are still searching for a plan B and these sound interesting enough, feel free to join us for that. Online resources. So we have a lot of things that that can help you with your preparation at your fingertips. We have Focus 2, which is an assessment if you are still trying to figure out whether medicine or healthcare in general is the right field for you. We have Vault, where you can research industries, fields, companies. They have internship and job database. Interview Stream is a platform where you can practice your interviewing skills, either for a research position or a clinical position, or if you're looking for a part-time job. There are 7,000 general and industry-specific questions in that system, so you will find all sorts of questions to practice. WeMock is something new. We are launching it this year, and it's a great platform to help you craft a powerful resume. So you may want to check that out. And the Going Global is for people who may plan to either study abroad or work abroad, and it can give you information, relevant information about major industries, academic institutions, living conditions in any parts of the world or other parts of the US. Online resources, UCLA Online Community is a great way to connect with former Bruins. Some of them offered to become mentors to current Bruins. So if you feel that you would benefit from a mentorship with a physician, feel free to look at this website and find someone to form that relationship with. And if you're still in career exploration mode, LS110, which is a career exploration in the life sciences course, is an excellent opportunity for you to figure out what that plan B might look like. This particular course is only 2 units, pass, no pass, and it also has a self-assessment piece. You will be taking self-assessments, and you will also meet a lot of interesting speakers from all backgrounds, all life science backgrounds, doing something very different than medicine. Test prep resources, as I mentioned earlier, Kaplan, Princeton, they both are partners. Princeton Review offers discounts for UCLA students. Kaplan might too, but Princeton is for sure. Campus-wide programming, so Peace Corps, Jeffrey, you met Jeffrey earlier. This is his contact information. If you have any questions for him or interested in learning more about the Peace Corps, feel free to email him. And then we have I have a couple of slides about opportunities on campus and near campus. So I do recommend to get certifications that will suggest that you are not as big of a health concern or liability in a medical setting. So if you have the CPR, AED, basic life support, first aid, you will be able to show that you know your way around some situations, and it might look good on a resume when you try to apply for a hospital position or volunteering option. The Care Extender program, you may have heard of them. These they provide opportunities for volunteers to experience healthcare at Ronald Reagan. It's, I believe, a 2-year commitment, but they rotate through various departments, and you can have some great exposure to the medical field through the Care Extender program. UCLA Center of Pre-Hospital Care is just off campus on Gailey, and they do have courses. Some of them are online. So they offer EMT, paramedic, phlebotomy courses. So if you are interested in earning your EMT license, feel free to look them up as well. My UCLA Health Ambassadors are also student-directed organizations that can help you with gaining meet physicians and gain healthcare experience. And as everybody else, we are all over the internet. So we have, as I mentioned, the Pre-Health at UCLA Facebook page. We have a LinkedIn group, Twitter, and I forgot to mention, but we do have a YouTube channel as well. But it's the UCLA Career Center YouTube channel, and we have a lot of great videos accessible through that as well. And now let's see the questions. So I'm gonna have the Q&A open. So how would you find research with COVID-19? Are there still programs on campus? So I just sat through a town hall meeting about research on campus, and it's still quite limited, especially for undergrads, to my understanding. So please make sure that you are in touch with your professors and TAs, and that you check regularly the research, the undergraduate research center for opportunities, because as the situation changes, the opportunities may open up. So don't give up on finding research, but I have to say that because the campus is not quite back to normal, it's probably going to be limited. If you want to find research, because many of you are not going to be near campus, you may attend classes from your home, you can start looking around if there are any other research opportunities in your area. Sometimes you can find an entry-level laboratory technician job at a company that are part-time and you can handle, or wait until the summer and try, hopefully by the summer, some of the annual summer research programs will be back in full swing. That's so get discounts, okay. Do we ask for LORs the year before we apply or as soon as we form? So that's form a relationship with the professor as soon as first year. So great question, thank you for asking. So my suggestion to students usually is to ask for the letter of recommendation when your relationship with that person is the strongest. And the reason for that is that, let's say you take a course in second year, you have a great relationship with your biology professor, but you don't ask them then. Then you get to your junior year and you want a letter from him. By then, there were several students who from his or her current class who approached them. So you definitely want to approach your letter writers when they know most about you, when you see them on a daily basis, when the relationship is strongest, because I think that's when you can get the stronger letter. If you prefer to wait, you can do that too, but then we do suggest to keep in touch with that professor from time to time, maybe stop by office hours, send them an email once in a while, maintain that relationship. So if you do ask them in a later time, they will still know exactly who you are and would be willing to have to write a letter for you. What is considered a strong GPA and MCAT score? Oh my God. If I would have $1 every time I was asked that, and I cannot tell you exactly. All I know is that the higher the GPA, the better, the stronger the MCAT score, the better. But I don't want to give you a vague answer because it's not going to help you. My suggestion is to start looking at schools that you're most interested in and to gain a better understanding of what these numerics looks for those specific schools, because it's going to be UCLA's statistics going to look very different than some other schools. So you have to understand where your scores might be competitive. But I have to tell you, it has to be, especially the science GPA, as strong as you can keep them. So 3.6, 3.7, and the MCAT score, depending, the 510 is the bottom range usually of what we say that would be nice. But again, there are no golden rule. Even with a 4.0, a perfect MCAT score, medical school is a no guarantee. It's a holistic application process for a reason. That's why it's good to have a strong GPA and MCAT score, but there are no guarantees, even if you have them, because they really want to find someone who is a committed, empathetic, well-rounded individual. So all those extracurricular activities will make a huge difference in addition to your GPA and MCAT score. I hope that answers the question. If we apply in June or after our junior year, will med school still be able to see what we do in senior year? No, they won't. The only way they will know what happens in senior year if it comes up in the interview. Some schools do accept updates from their candidates, but some don't. So take that into consideration when you decide. You will be submitting, sometimes even the spring grades are not on there necessarily because students are eager to submit their application as early in June as possible, and spring grades don't come out until late June. So sometimes even the spring grades don't make it onto the application, but like I said, in some instances, you will be able to send updates. Do you recommend a gap year, and what would you do in a gap year? So if you take a look at the average age of medical school students, you will notice that that number is going up. And the gap year is the reason. More and more students are considering taking gap years, 1 or 2. depending on their situation. And there are a variety of reasons why students take gap years. One is they are not happy with their GPA or MCAT score, and they need to focus on those numbers to bring them up, which either means they have to complete a post-bac program, or they just need to take some time to focus on preparing for the MCAT one more time. If your numerics are in good shape, if your GPA and MCAT score is solid, then you have other reasons sometimes or other options. So sometimes students choose to take a gap year because they are just sick of school and they don't want to go into another 4-year right away. So they want to take a break, and that's perfectly acceptable. As long as you're not sitting at home playing video games, you're free to do whatever you want, because any activity, whether that's a job, a volunteer opportunity, a travel abroad opportunity, will expand your skill set, will give you new skills, new qualities, new talents, new knowledge, and you can explain why you decided to take that year or two off. Some students want to make sure that they like medicine, so they work for a couple of years or a year in a medical setting. Some want to have more research experience. So there are a wide variety of reasons people do take gap years, and if you use your time wisely, it could mean that you become a stronger candidate in that time. If you don't want to take a gap year, when should we ask for LORs? So if you don't take a gap year, that means that you are applying in the June of your junior year. So anytime before that. You want to have your letters of recommendation added into the system by June, just to make sure that everything is ready. But technically, as I mentioned earlier, the letters of recommendation go out with your secondaries, which can come in as late as, as early as end of July, or as late as, I don't know, August, August, even September, depending on when you sent in your primary application. But just to make sure, you definitely want to ask for letters of recommendation throughout your junior year to make sure that you have them all. Is the medical school application similar to the UC application in that the app can be submitted anytime in the window? What is the difference between the primary and secondary? Okay, so within May, you can submit anytime. I mean, starting June, you can submit anytime depending on the school application deadline. Like I mentioned, every school's application deadline is different. The June is the same for everyone because it's a centralized application process. So the application opens in June for all the medical schools that you select. By the way, the Texas medical schools are on a different system. So if you're interested in the Texas medical schools, you have to look up their centralized application system and submit applications through that as well. But close to 200 medical schools are participating in the MCAT centralized application system. And once you submit in June, then once it opens in June, you can start submitting, and depending on when the school application deadline is, you can keep submitting until October, and in some cases even later. But as I mentioned, most schools are enrolling admissions, so you don't want to be a late applicant. The second part of that question is, what's the difference between the primary and secondary? So the primary, because that same application goes to every school, it's going to be a very general application about your personal information, activities, personal statement. The secondary applications will have very specific questions about the school that the secondary application is coming from. So the essays will be more targeted, like why are you interested in our institution, our program? And there might be some more specific questions on the secondary application. All right, so I'm done with the Q&A. Let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Nope. All right, so I'm gonna stop share and I will stop recording.